Hey Nat.
Hey, Beck. I have a new poem for you.
Oh, yes. Don't ever stop bringing me poems, okay?
Okay. Well, this one is called Knoxville, Tennessee by Nikki Giovanni. She starts the poem off saying, I always like summer best, and then kind of goes sort of summery focus, like barbecue stuff and church sing songs. But then she ends it with these short lines and go to the mountains with your grandmother and go barefooted and be warm all the time, not only when you go to bed and sleep.
Hmm. Oh, that makes me nostalgic for Grandma. Although I don't know that we ever
Yeah.
went barefooted with her.
Probably not, actually. I don't think that we did. No, maybe. There were a couple beach runs, but anyway, we were little. But that's exactly it. That's what this whole summer series for this week is about nostalgia.
Dum 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 dum.
So for me, nostalgia and summer really work well together because I'm often moving, as you know, at a really quick pace. And the heat of the summer slows me down. And so instead of being annoyed about being slowed down in the heat, I'm trying to sort of reframe it and look at myself as being given and gifted time to ponder things, like to remember things. And in the Giovanni poem, when she remembers her grandmother and then like associates the warmth of that grandma with falling asleep in bed, that just made me have a memory recently of grandma when she was sort of nearing the ends of her life and all she wanted to eat were those grocery store macadamia cookies. I would go over to their
Oh,
house and cut her nails and do you not know? I went over to their house, right? I'd always be going over to like cut her nails or trim grandpa's ears because I was like their esthetician. And then they would always have these cookies on the go, but they weren't for grandpa. Those were fully for grandma.
yeah, I vaguely remember the box. Was it kind of a reddish box or was that the shortbreads?
No, that was shortbreads. You're right. That totally was the shortbreads, which I think were for grandpa. But I think grandma wanted hardcore sugar or something. So these were in those plastic, hard to
Oh,
open
yeah.
containers.
Oh, that
I
is a really
know.
warm memory. So, is that really the first thing on our list then for our summer list here? Is that we are indulging in warm memories?
I think so. Do you have any?
I I have lots. Can you imagine if you don't have any warm memories? That's a whole other thing, right? Nat.
Yeah, that might be another podcast episode, actually, to like unpack with
Although,
somebody who comes in to talk to us about it. Well, let's just
but
stick with the
yes,
warm memories.
yeah, the nostalgia. Because actually, as I was preparing for this episode, I did have to go look up nostalgia to be like, it's the lighter memories, right? That's what we're doing here, the light. So yes,
Yeah,
so Wikipedia or wherever I found the definition reminded me that this is happy, wistful. So if I
yeah.
think about happy memories, something that came to mind actually after hanging out with a friend of ours that we've reconnected with because of this podcast, she was reminding me about when I lived in California, and that's where Elsie was born. I had a blog that was like early blog days, and it was called The Girl Who Learned to Kneel.
I loved that
No, I
blog.
did. You did? I wish
Yeah,
I had stayed with
totally
it.
did.
Yeah. Um, the girl who learned to kneel, um, and apparently on the blog, I did a voice note or a voice recording for Elsie, where I was singing a song about giving birth to her. So it was a song. So our friend Michelle reminded me of this song. It was something like, I gave birth to you, Elsie, and it was hard. Like it was kind of I like a twang. Think like country twang. I recorded this song about my birth experience. That that's my weird warm memory because Who was that woman, that girl who did that and wanted to sum up a birth experience in a silly song? Like it's so. What do you make of that, Nat?
Whimsical. It's like
Yeah.
whimsy. There's something so, yeah, like light and sparkly, and that's lovely. But I don't think I ever heard that song, Beck. So that's so interesting that our friend would remember that. I have to go off camera for a second to grab my phone because didn't she actually send us a clip herself? Hold
Yeah.
on. Because I have to pull this up because we have like
Yes, she like that. Yeah, that night I just pulled out my phone. I said, "Could you tell us something about nostalgia?" Because she's Michelle. Are you out there? You're very good off the cuff speaker.
yeah, she is really good. And she gave us something kind of lovely here. So I'm going to press play and hopefully we'll get to hear it. You ready? If I Here it comes. Back to 1999 and be less guarded, more open, more willing to have deep conversations and just be joyful. I wonder what that would have changed. But maybe the joy of getting older is that we're alive to get to ask ourselves those questions. You know, that we survived it. We survived the youth, the kind of blinders and guardedness that we put on. Maybe that's the joy of getting older, right? So, what do you think? The joy of getting older is that we can look back and remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Yeah, it's funny because nostalgia is not. I Yeah, like I get it the most probably with my kids, looking at kids' photos and thinking about the kids and really aching in a good way, I think. So I don't, that's not exactly connected to Michelle's thing, but that's because actually what she's saying actually makes me go, I don't know if I look back with joy at how I've grown. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, when she said that, it felt very wise, and I've actually been pondering it for a while. I don't know that it was
Mm,
my own natural inclination. I do think, and I've said it before on here, that I definitely look back on younger Natalie and feel very tender for her. So if that is nostalgia, I don't think that it is though. So I think the sort of sparkly, summery stuff that I'm thinking of right now is maybe different than my memories that I hold from back then of myself even. But I
mm.
like that somebody else would sum it up that way.
Yeah. And I think I need people like her in my life. That's what I get from that is that I would say, okay, um, nostalgia is it's it's not totally easy for me, but let's jump to the second thing on our list, Nat, because let's.
Okay. Okay. Well, number two on our nostalgia summer list is an herby infused olive oil. I learned this from I was watching Instagram food videos because Frankie and I sometimes do that at night as we start to get ready to fall asleep. And I really like this one Instagram chef named Sophia Rowe, and
Mm,
she had some a really neat recipe about heating up some garlic and herbs from the garden and a hot pepper, like one of your crazy habanero peppers from last summer, and
mm,
then actually heating it up over medium low heat for like 4 to 5 minutes. So it's like super easy. That's all you're doing. But then you take it off the heat, add some salt, and then let it sit for at least 20 minutes, but she said preferably an hour. And then that's it. You drain it and then drizzle this infused oil over chopped fresh tomatoes. And that essentially was it. She added some sliced peach or strawberry. She did currants actually, but she said you could add sliced peach or strawberry for a little sweetness. And then that's you just dig in. And it's supposed to be the perfect summer salad. And to me, the idea that I could make my own infused olive oil was phenomenal because I love tomatoes and that's just a way like it just comes together so fast. So how is that not kind of like the nostalgic summery tastes of farm market food. I loved it.
Mm. Yeah, I that reminds me of that Italian place up the street from us, and they make a version of that. But if I could make my own, that's could be life changing for me, Nat. Simon's always like, let's go get
Right.
the bruschetta. So he would, if he knew about this, we could eat this every day. So thank you.
Well, and as your tomatoes keep growing at the farm, this is going to become our new thing. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
number 3 on our nostalgia summer list, and I'm not kidding here, thinking of the farm, but really anybody's green space could make this happen for them, um, is weeding for 20 minutes while listening to a podcast. Obviously, we encourage people to use hours as their listening material, but literally throwing on a timer and doing it for 20 minutes.
Right, because you don't want to wreck your back, as mom has noted for herself that you have to be careful with weeding. So do it on a timer and just get into it, but then stretch.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm saying that this is nostalgically inspired is because I think that when you weed, so when your time kind of is invested in kind of reaching down into the earth, you're thinking back on when things were just planted, like just starting. And now all of a sudden with the weeds, you're in the midst of all of this, I don't know, growth, right? So it's like being in an in between place. I was just reading a book by this ethnographer from Australia named Aaron Jackson, and he said that this in between space emotionally is one that requires real attention, that things in the past and in the future are both potentially shifted because of the way that we react in the present. And I think weeds are the perfect sort of like physical metaphor for that idea.
Hmm. Yeah, because you really have
Thought?
to. Well, that's a big one. I have to think about that. But you do have to be there with the weed. So you're, so it's, is it the idea of that don't be angry at the weed, kind of? Just receive the weed?
Yeah, I think one could be philosophical like that a little bit, but I think it's more like the actual act of weeding is its own doing. It's not just thinking of when I planted or what's going to come next, but that weeding is part of the process.
Mm, right. I was trying to encourage, like, mom was here and she was weeding so much and she was kind of, she was being a bit negative about the weeding because it's like, we'll never accomplish it all. Like, the weeds will always just keep
Yeah.
coming back. So yeah, like receiving them as just part of the process. I like that
Hmm.
because there's no other way. You can't conquer them permanently. So they're part of the journey of
No.
gardening.
Yeah. And then getting to be with the earth and be with your body and doing all of this kind of work that only happens for a season because of the fact that gardening only happens for a season. So I think there's some life altering, nostalgic kind of memory stuff buried in there.
Right. Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, Nat. Yes. You always cause me to think, go deeper. The other thing for me I wanted to add on this list, and just to note that I was reading about writing, and the teacher was commenting that nostalgia is very particular. So you have to be careful when you try to use nostalgia in your writing because my nostalgic
Mhm.
moments are different than yours. So I found that interesting, just like that different things evoke different things in us so that it's not universal. But
Mhm.
um, so it's very personal, but the general feeling of nostalgia we understand. So I'm reading this book, Burnt Sugar, right now. Look, we're on video, so I can hold it up. Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. hope I said her name right, shortlisted for the Booker. And it's actually a very challenging book. Like the relationship is this mother and a daughter, and the mother took her daughter to live with her in an ashram. Did I say that right? Basically, it was a cult that she was living in. And so it's painful for the daughter as she remembers it. But it's funny, like the character is so complicated and she's an artist. And there's something about even this heavy book that is, it makes me think of maybe other books I've read that I have loved, because I do like these complicated, darker characters. So it's just making me think that go search for your book this summer, or something intangible that brings out a pleasant wistfulness in you that might be, and it might not even be something you can explain. Like, I don't know why this book, there's an element of nostalgia in it for me. It's weird. I can't explain it, but maybe there's just follow your instinct. So that's what my number 4, my summer list is: follow where your nostalgia wants to take you. Nat.
I really
What do you
love that.
think?
I have a friend, one of our Patreon subscribers actually, she was telling me the other day that the book that she's embarking on for this summer is from it's that Clan of the Cave Bear series. I don't know if you ever read that
Mm-mm.
series when we were younger, but she's returned to it. Like somebody had sort of prompted her to think about it. And I think it brought up feelings of nostalgia for sort of a time when one could lose oneself in a book. Because those books are long, right? Like you have to like invest in the time, but there's also a lot to it. Like there are maps, you know what I mean? Like you're in. And I thought that was so fun that was what the gift she was giving to herself of that time. So people are already ahead of us on this list, Beck. They've already found their summer book. I love it. Okay. So number 5.
Number 5 is candy in a plastic cup. That's something we buy from a store up here when we're trying to have a cheap treat. And it's kind of gross candy, but I kind of think the act of sharing this gross candy is, we're creating a nostalgic moment as a family. So I don't know what that would be for other people, but my number 5 is candy in a plastic cup.
No, I think that's totally nostalgic. I love that. We went to see Thor the other night, the first movie I think we've seen together as a little trio since COVID happened. And we went to No Frills to get our candy because I refused to pay concession prices for gummies. And then we shared like kind of no name gummies. They weren't even the real deal, but they were so tasty because we're eating it in the theater together and we're kind of passing it across between the three of us in the row. So there is something really nostalgic about the candy as attached to the act, which was the time together with the movie. Like I remember mom getting really nostalgic about saltwater taffies, and I think that they brought up feelings for her of like her summers and in childhood. So I
Mm,
think candy calls up
mm-hmm.
major memories.
Agreed. And saltwater taffy, that's a nostalgic one for me. Actually, that's if I just want to be simple, simple. Saltwater taffy. If I have a handful of that, that could calm everything down and just go to that wistful, gentle place.
Well, there you go, people. 5 nostalgic things.
And you can see we do nostalgia so easily. Oh man,
This is
only
hard.
for only for you listeners. Nat,
I
I
love you
love
back.
you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.